Hello and welcome to the AVForums podcast for Monday the 3rd of December, and joining me on this edition is Steve Withers.
I am the Walrus.
Ed Selley.
I'm just going to go find a cash machine.
And Mark Botwright.
I can get you a tow.
I take it that was a quote, Ed, and that you don't actually need to go to the cash machine right now.
I will later on, but no, that was a quote.
If you were being offered what you're being offered in the film, you would definitely be going to a cash point machine.
Indeed.
Right now.
Although that's a challenge at the moment, because I opened my wallet yesterday and my bank card wasn't in it. I think I might have left it in HMV, so I'll have to pop down to HMV later on and see if it's still there.
Oh dear. Yeah.
It is what it is. I mean, obviously, it's less terrifying these days because you can then check on your banking app, and the last payment was HMV, and no further payments have been made. So I'm hoping it's just sat in the till recess at HMV, and I can go and collect it. If not, I'll have to cancel the card and go from there.
How quickly do contactless go through?
Contactless, they would start to deduct by now. Given I visited HMV on Wednesday and nothing has happened, I'm reasonably confident.
Would you get one of those calls from your bank saying there's been unusual activity? Someone's bought something other than vinyl.
I very rarely get those from Barclays. Years ago, when I was still working for Cambridge Audio, I spent so much money on taxis in Norway that NatWest Business phoned up and asked for my safe word because they thought I was in some sort of hostage situation.
And what was your safe word?
I'm afraid the safe word. I'm not going to say it just in case it is still the same one for the company. But it was a boring and prosaic, but not routinely recited word. So that's fine.
Okay. Anything else exciting happening in your life, Ed?
It's all right here. I've been busily. It's the end of the month, so I've nearly finished my AVForums reviews. I was explaining to Phil before we went on air. So that weekend looks like it's going to be a big helping of that. I have otherwise been sort of just ploughing through stuff, trying to make sort of, you know how it is for reviewing at this point. It's getting stuff out of companies which are totally focused on Christmas is a bit of a challenge, and then also you in turn want to be finished before Christmas proper and everything stops. So yeah, just trying to keep everything in order and flying in the right direction.
Oh, you don't have to tell me about that at the minute. We're doing our Editor's Choice Awards, people. So the first one should be up by the time you listen to the podcast. It was the one that Steve's put together for us, the Home AV Products of the Year. But yeah, it's trying to get products through, because our rules are we have to have reviewed them in the last 12 to 18 months. So that is the one and only rule, is that we have to have reviewed the product in question. And I've got 2 TVs turning up today which need to be reviewed within a week. One's a real quick turnaround. It's arriving today and it's getting picked up again next Thursday. And I've still got another projector and a power amp and other TVs to look at as well. So yeah, you think it would get quieter at this time of the year, but no, that's not the case. Steve, what have you been up to?
I think that's similar to you two, to be honest. Trying to just ship everything through and get it all done for Christmas.
God, we're a festive bunch of bastards.
You make all these detailed plans, don't you? You think, like, I'm going to do that day, and I'm going to do that day, and then you think, oh, I'm going to rearrange it now because I didn't do that day, and I'm going to have to do that day now. So yeah, I've been. It's a bit like when I was at school with my revision schedule. There's been a lot of revising of my revision schedule.
revising, yeah.
I've got 10 days, and I've got to get it all done.
Yeah, you been anywhere? You done anything interesting?
No.
Okay. Okay.
Not at all.
So you haven't been doing what Ed was doing yesterday and looking at £250,000 hi-fi systems and that kind of thing?
That gig's mine. You're not going anywhere near
it. Ed can have all the hi-fi kit that costs more than a space shuttle. It's okay.
Yeah.
To be fair, there were 3 systems, and the most affordable was only £11,700.
Only.
So
yeah.
Only
only you, Ed, could make 11 grand sound affordable, but you did. Well done.
It is what it is. We all know this. We've been active for time. It's an expensive industry, but my word, is it a satisfying one?
It's strange how we all have our own value scales that we use, and I catch myself doing it myself, I wouldn't think twice about putting 70 quid's worth of fuel in the car. But if I was going out to eat at a restaurant and the meal was over a certain amount of money, say it was going to be about 70 quid, I wouldn't be happy with that. Yet I'm quite happy to chuck 70 quid in the car.
I think we've had this conversation before, but I value everything in Blu-rays, basically. 4K Blu-rays. That's how I evaluate the entire world. Now, how much is that in Blu-rays? Oh, Christ, that's 3 Blu-rays. I'm not doing that.
What's your scale, Ed?
It used to be records, but no. I equate things mainly in tanks of fuel now.
Right.
I mean, it's not quite as my consumption isn't quite as chronic as yours. I mean, mine's sitting at 34.9 miles to the gallon, but it still equates to being. Well, I know, Steve, but
I can get 80 to 90 sometimes.
The difference is that my car is fun.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm only going 4 miles an hour, granted, but
yeah.
I mean, actually, I don't know if it's been the same in your respective corners of the UK, but actually, there's been a very significant drop in how much unleaded costs here.
It's hovered
you're
about
right.
the same.
That's dropped a little bit.
I had to do fill at 127.9 a couple of weeks ago, and our last filling earlier this week was at 120.9. Which, don't get me wrong, that's still a stupid amount of money to spend on unleaded fuel, but nonetheless, it makes a significant difference when you're brimming the tank from empty.
When it gets to this time of the year, though, Ed, I filled up at the beginning of the month, and I'm still on that tank of fuel because of the weather.
Well, this is true.
You can't drive the car.
I went to I went to Ipswich and back yesterday, and I'm down to Hampshire later on today. So, my mileage allowance on the lease is let's ignore that for the moment, and 2, I'm burning a lot of fuel.
That's your life, isn't it, Ed? It's been reduced to incremental units of mileage, fuel, and broadband, isn't it?
Mate, I have become an absolute. We're looking at Google Maps and plotting destinations, and obviously it throws up the blue
minimum
line.
Number of miles, isn't it? Not minimum time.
You then start adjusting the blue line. It's like, what happens if I travel down that farm track? Oh, that shows, so on and so forth. My distance has been reduced to increments, and it's funny. Obviously, we've started shooting bits of video for our reviews, dragging this tortuously back on topic. And Stuart has been experimenting with different upload sites as to which one's best for our requirements. And I got a message very early yesterday morning going, I'd like to change from the one that we're currently using to a different one. And I had to reply going, that's absolutely fine, but you'll have to wait until the weekend because I've blown the 5 gigs of allowance that I'd allocated to do it and so I have to wait until it resets. It's like, no worry, I've managed to get them. It's like, good, because it's going to be several days hiatus until they appear again. So yeah, that's my life. Hooray!
What have you been up to, Mark?
Yeah, about that. Yeah, no, I'm carrying on with my hat making.
I was about to say, are the ends of your fingers in serviceable condition?
Have you got mercury poisoning yet?
No, but I have I foolishly decided to just work out how much, because I'm only making 2 hats. So how much the cost of the course, and if I were paid minimum wage, how much each hat would cost me. And these are going to be some seriously expensive hats.
Is this your new increment of cost?
Yes, but yeah, with each hat being worth, I think, about 250 to £300.
Do you wear a lot of hats, Mark?
I do wear a hat, Steve. I do love a hat.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Wearing a hat's a real statement. You can't. No one just wears a hat. You walk into a room wearing a trilby, and you better be able to carry it off because, that's a serious statement these days. Like the old days, 30s, everyone wore a hat. Now, no one wears a hat. So if you put a hat on,
oh no, but
you better mean business.
Oh yeah, but you can't walk into a room wearing a trilby. You have to take your hat off indoors. I'm sorry.
No, you have to have the trilby on at a jaunty angle and look very cocksure.
No, you're going down a very kind of Ollie Murs route there, Steve. Not having that.
There's a significant danger of being a neckbeard when you try that sort of thing. So yeah,
I've got a flat cap.
Oh well, I would expect nothing less.
It's actually quite important because it keeps my head warm. In fact, I've had to start wearing a beanie in bed at night because I've realised that. No, seriously, I've been waking up with headaches and feeling really rough, and I've realised my head's freezing at night. So now I have to wear a beanie on my head. I looked for one of those sort of things that Scrooge wears in A Christmas Carol, but I couldn't find one. So.
Steve, you are regressing to the sort of state of being a tiny baby because they wear hats in bed as well.
Well, because for the same reason, they haven't got any hair.
Presumably nappies are only a matter of time.
I'll tell you what, nappy would be great. We wouldn't have to get out of bed to go for a wee then. You could just piss
dear
yourself.
God. Are you sure that the headache
is obviously the way forward.
Are you sure that the headache isn't the fact that your wife has actually had enough of you and you are being poisoned in your sleep?
My wife did get into 2:30 last night. She's feeling very rough this morning, so I'm feeling quite smug.
If I'd come in at that
smug,
time...
although it's like tired, because I got disturbed.
If I'd come in at that, I'd have just stolen your hat and just run off.
Right.
That's why you live alone.
Oh, that's the sickest of words, isn't it?
Right, before we all fall out, I think we should probably move on a little bit. So I'm going to go to Dr. Death on the podcast. Steve, we've lost some more people. Tell us about them.
We have. It's been I think over the last 2 weeks we've had quite a few deaths. Although in fairness, they've all been fairly old. So fair enough. But yes, Nicholas Roeg died this week. One of my favourite directors, actually. Started off as a cinematographer. He actually was the cinematographer he worked on Lawrence of Arabia, didn't he? He wasn't the cinematographer on Lawrence of Arabia, but he was second unit, I think. And then he was hired as cinematographer for Dr. Zhivago, but fell out with David Lean and got sacked. But then moved into directing. Started off with Performance, which he co-directed with Douglas Camel, I think it was, with Mick Jagger and James Fox, which is a cracking film, sort of a really psychedelic gangster movie with rock and roll. It's the best way of describing it. Then he made Walkabout, which is a really great film with Jenny Agutter, lost in the outback with an Aborigine boy. And then he made one of my favourite films of all time, which is Don't Look Now, easily one of the best horror films ever made. And also follow that up with one of the best sci-fi films ever made with David Bowie's The Man Who Fell to Earth. So yeah, I mean, two of my favourite films is going pretty good going. He then made some other stuff which interesting but not as good. I'd say Bad Timing is a grim watch. Eureka's got the first half of Eureka's really good, but the second half it drags. Then he made things like Insignificance, but obviously his career tailed off in the 80s. But I think if I'd made The Man Who Fell to Earth and Don't Look Now, I'd be pretty happy. So that's a shame, but I think he was 90, so fairly good innings. And then Bernardo Bertolucci, he was a lot younger than I realised. He must have been pretty young when he made Last Tango in Paris, because he was only in his 70s when he died. Obviously, that's what he's famous for, Last Tango in Paris, and winning the Oscar for The Last Emperor, which I remember seeing at the cinema and really quite enjoying, because it was a story I've been nothing back then in the 80s. China was a fairly mysterious place, and they were the first Western production to shoot in the Forbidden City, so it was all quite interesting seeing the Forbidden City and learning the history of the last Emperor of China and the Japanese invasion of Manchuria. But so two great directors who sadly have lost.
Yeah, it's Last Tango in Paris just wouldn't be made these days, would it? It's definitely a film of its time.
Yeah, it's got some dodgy stories around its making as well, actually.
Yeah.
I don't think they're all dead now, aren't they? I suppose that he was the last, because she died quite young. Obviously, Brando's gone. So, but yeah, Last Tango is one of those films that if you watch it, it's kind of you watch it for one reason, but then realise it's a bit boring.
Thanks for that in-depth review there.
Yeah. Expecting anyway.
I've got to say though, I Don't Look Now still holds up incredibly well today.
Don't Look Now is one of the. It's a brilliant. He creates this incredible air of dread throughout the entire film, which leads up to one of the biggest shock endings of any film I've ever seen in my life. And I think it's brilliant.
It's funny because I've been watching on Netflix Haunting of Hill House.
Yeah, is that good? Because I'm thinking starting that soon.
Yeah, it is, but it deals with a lot of the kind of same issues. And Don't Look Now, it was kind of about bereavement and the kind of the breakdown of a relationship and that kind of thing, and the whole idea of kind of portents of death and the kind of cynical character, and it's just mental instability, that kind of thing. It still holds up fantastically well. I love that film.
It's interesting because although he was a cinematographer to begin with, it's his editing that makes his film so unique. He juxtaposes space and time in a way like nobody ever did. And so when you watch something like
it's far too early in the day to come out with a sentence that is juxtaposing space and time. Can you crawl back under a rock and we can have an argument about something?
Yeah, you can tell he got up at 4 a.m. this morning.
Oh,
right.
God, he's insufferable.
4 a.m.
Right, time to move on. Current competitions, Mark.
Step out of your box, Mark, before we put you back in. Hang on.
Dance, monkey, dance.
Hang on. Let me take a hit on my Vicks Sinex. Get a good lungful of air. Right. You can win one of 3 jar airable nano Bluetooth speakers, and you've only got till 4th of December for that one, so get your skates on. We've also got a copy of The Tree of Life on Blu-ray, and that one also closes on 4th of December. We've also got a copy of The Handmaid's Tale Season 2 on DVD, and you've got until the 7th of December for that one. And we've got a behind-the-scenes tour of ITV News, so something a bit different, and you've got until 10th of December. We've also got a copy of Dog Days on Blu-ray, and that competition runs till the 11th of December, and a Dream Screen holiday giveaway. I have no idea what that is.
That's basically a do-it-yourself Ambilight system.
Oh, right, it's not a holiday.
No, it's not a holiday. It's very misleading, that title, isn't it? I think you're right. I suppose they mean holidays as in the modern sense of not saying Christmas anymore because everyone's modern.
Yeah.
Denominational.
You reviewed one of these, didn't you, a while back?
Yeah, I did, actually. And my big complaint was it works. And certainly if you're the kind of person that loves Ambilight for the whole disco effect, it's definitely up there. My big complaint with the one I reviewed, and it was a couple of years ago now, was it didn't have a neutral ISF kind of, D65 light mode behind the TV, which would be the one thing I'd want it for. But it does work, certainly. Obviously, what it does is there's a little box that goes between the source and the TV, and then that connects to the LEDs that you stick behind the panel, and then you get your kind of Ambilight effect.
Fair enough. So, don't pack your holiday bags if you're expecting that one. And you've got until 16th of December for that one. And final competition, you can win an IOTA AVXP1 7-channel power amplifier. And that one closes on 10th of January.
And
that's a reasonable price.
That one's well worth winning, because both myself and Steve have tested that one recently, and it's well worth the money. Well worth the money.
And of real solid power solid, really, really good power amplification. So if you're in the market for a power amp, that'd be a good one to win.
Yep, there we go. You're going to do the disclaimer, Mark?
Yep, as ever, all competitions are open to eligible AVForums members resident in the UK.
You're going to be glad at the next bit. Is there any previous winners?
None.
Good. See, you didn't have to read any more out. You can now go back on mute
sleep.
And go back to sleep, if you like.
Back in my box.
Hardware news is next. Okay, so hardware news, we're going to do things a little bit differently this week. So some of you who are listening on a regular basis will know that Philips held an event in London this year where they did an OLED shootout. I went along, I acted as independent adjudicator and set the TVs up, calibrated them all so they were all looking the same. And join us on the podcast now, following that shootout event, is Danny Tack from Philips. Danny, thank you very much for joining us on the podcast today.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
We've got plenty of questions here for you today, and some forum members have also given us some questions to ask you. So the first one is, now that the dust has settled with the shootout, how do you think it went?
Yeah, I was very happy the way it went, with winning the test again, like we did last year. I was expecting it a bit, as we are still with our technology, I think, ahead of competition. So I was counting on winning, but it's always exciting to find out at the evening itself. The scores in both tests did good, and I think also the scores showed that we did it in a proper way. Since the calibrated one, we won, although it was very close. With the differences in the scores were small, and that comes back to a good calibration. And in movie mode, not so much picture processing, so quite balanced. And then, of course, I was happy with winning the Vivid test, confirming that our picture quality processing is superior over competition.
Do you feel that people are going to take this seriously? Because it was a Philips event, you did pay to host the event and so on, and then you went and won it, so it could look a bit dodgy.
You're right. But on the other hand, the audience which was there knew how we have done it. So let me explain that again. TVs that were used in that test were bought in the shop. Actually, we had a blind PQ shootout test prior to the one in London, also in Germany, and there the sets were bought in the shop and used by a German magazine. So there were really non-prepared sets, normal sets. Then sets were calibrated by already in Germany, but you even did the recalibrated AVForums, recalibrated the sets, which I think got us on a starting equal field. And then TVs were put in a blind position. We were drawing the position of the TV sets, and also that went quite neutral. And then we played a number of clips. To be exact, I think we had 11, which was a good balance between full HD clips, UHD resolution clips, good and bad picture quality. So with artifacts in there and gorgeous, sharp stuff, streaming content, Blu-ray movies, and SDR and HDR content. So everything which is there in the playfield for consumers to watch at. It was not that we chose special clips, but we had a wide span of clips, and then a questionnaire, a simple questionnaire with where they could score their preference, could choose one or could choose actually two. So I think in a way, yeah. Of course, I understand that because we organized it, that people might be suspicious, but we try to do it as neutral as possible, and I hope people appreciate that. The reason why we did that test is because we thought we could win it. We won it, and yeah, otherwise we would, I think, not have organized it if we knew that whatever kind of formula of testing we could not win, we would not have done it. That's probably the only thing why you could say, yeah, you have to be suspicious that Philips did it. It was because we knew how good our picture processing was. Okay, so why do you think the Philips 903 won, in your opinion? Well, for two reasons. I think indeed our engine, if I refer back to the Vivid where the scores were outspoken, because our P5 engine, called P5 because we're working on 5 P's, being sharpness, color, contrast, motion, and artifacts, have very strong and clever picture processing. And not the least is that the balance we put on all of those 5 P's is a quite balanced picture. We're not exaggerating in any of those 5 P's, so we're not pulling the string of sharpness up sky high and then getting it back into being very bad in artifacts. So we have a good balance between sharpness and artifacts, but also in with contrast and colors. A balanced, vivid picture, which is then showing actually similar kind of look and feel as a movie picture, but on a higher scale. I've got to say, I have been impressed. I'm not sure if you're aware, but obviously with the review testing that we do here at AVForums, I actually have all the competitor TVs that we can use and you know, do comparisons and so on. And I have to say, and I don't know why, but I have been surprised with the Philips 903. Maybe I was coming from a place where I wasn't expecting much. I think I had a perception of what I thought Philips TVs would be like, and that would be not very good when it came to producing a very balanced and calibrated image. But I've actually been very, very surprised with the quality of the TVs. Yeah, as I said, because we spend a lot of time on picture processing. We put also exclusive picture processing in there, so we're spending a lot of money on making the picture right. And on top of that, our 30 years experience in tuning pictures, having the right technology behind, is, I think, the strength we have, and bringing good, balanced pictures to the market. Now, you had a really successful event, but I have been hearing complaints, and if you look at the forums, there have been a few posts saying that real difficulty finding your OLED TVs at retailers in the UK. So do you have any up-to-date information for people who are maybe looking to go and demo one? Yeah, well, when I was there for the event, I went myself into into Harrods, and I have seen our 903 now in the main demo room there in Harrods, so that's a good thing. But besides that, I heard also from our local guys in London that we are now in Richard Sounds and Curie's. We're also on board there. We have now the products at demo in 19 shops in the UK. So I think we're making a big step forward. So I hope people will start to find us more than in the past.
Danny, why do you see OLED technology as the high end when it comes to TV tech over, say, LED, LCD? What is it that gives OLED the edge, in your opinion?
Well, OLED has, of course, much better viewing angle performance than LED, and is also a lot better in blacks. Blacks are really black. I think that are the two major ones. Besides that, the fact that OLED is a light emitting technology, and LCD is using backlight, it is also OLED is also better for motion. And then OLED also has fantastic peak light in combination. So the peaks in white in combination with the deep blacks are gorgeous. The only thing you could say that OLED is maybe not better than LCD is on full white light output. But then again, full light white output pictures are not all the time around there. The majority of your programs that you're looking at is not full white, is like average, and where many times the strength of OLED with the peak light can compensate for maybe the weakness that there is in full light output. I was surprised myself 2 years ago when I was putting them side by side, and I started off looking at our demo clips, and I saw the disadvantage in light output. But when I started to look at average picture content, then that weakness of full light output faded away, and all the other positives like good blacks, peak white, better viewing angle came up, and made me conclude that we have to build further on OLED. OLED is the high-end technology.
Do you think there's a disadvantage though with OLED when it comes to HDR, because a lot of LED LCD manufacturers would point to the fact that they can do far higher peak brightness levels? Is that relevant, do you think?
I don't think so. I think the peaks that we now can reach with our OLEDs, like the 903 and the 803, are 1000 nit peak light. This is more than sufficient for HDR, and maybe to say still a word on LCD, and back to the light output thing, which is also playing, is then maybe the advantage for an HDR picture. The high light output that LCD can make, as soon as you're having a picture with black in, you see that most of the LCDs then compromise on their light, because their blacks are not as good as OLED, and to get them as good as OLED or near the OLED performance, they compromise on their light output. They actually reduce their strength, and in that respect, I think in the end for HDR, you're at an equal playing field, OLED and LCD.
Now, HDR10 Plus, the open source format, is supported by your OLED TVs, but where can people get the content to watch in the format?
Currently, Amazon is the main supplier of HDR10 sources. Amazon is also logically that Amazon does this because they were part of the group that created HDR10 Plus. Amazon together with Samsung, Panasonic, and also with the Hollywood guys being Warner Bros. And 20th Century Fox. And so also there you might expect soon some Hollywood movies from those studio houses will come over, and will be then you will get movie content through Blu-ray in HDR10 plus format. As a matter of fact, I think a couple of weeks back, just a couple of titles in Blu-ray have been launched. Not yet movies, but more like documentaries. So everything is in place to come to you. Amazon or via OTT is there, and the Blu-ray movies are going to be produced now soon. The Blu-ray players, being Panasonic and Samsung, are supporting the HDR10 plus format. So I think everything is ready there to come.
Okay, moving on to a forum members question. I hope I pronounced his name right. Sajaris99. Long question, but in a nutshell, will you support Dolby Vision or even HDR10 Plus and Dolby Vision on your TVs in future?
I'm sorry, but to not answer that one straight now, I would like to ask for some patience. We're going to do some announcements early in the year next year, like everybody else does at CES, announcing their new range. We're going to do also, and I hope Sagaris99 can wait till then to get the answer.
Okay. That means question number 8 is also going to be no answer at this point. So let's move on to another forum members' questions. It's Fulapo and Furnace Inferno. They said, what will HDMI 2.1 introduce and when will it be available on your OLED TVs? And indeed, is it necessary?
Well, so things that are on the list of 2.1 are high frame rate 4K. Is one. Second is dynamic metadata HDR, which is necessary if you want to play Dolby Vision or HDR10 Plus from Blu-ray, for instance. eARC, so enhanced audio return channel, and 8K is also one of them. So 4 or 5 elements from 2.1. Again, same answer a bit on the plans we have for 2.1, what we're going to do. Some of them we are working on, but the clear answer, the clear announcement will please also there wait till early 2K19. So it will be, I think, 3rd or 4th week of January we do some announcements. There we will come. Do we need it really? I think dynamic metadata HDR is probably the most urgent one, as it supports Dolby Vision and HDR10 Plus dynamic HDR performance. The others, enhanced audio return channel. If you have like a soundbar or something else, which only has one HDMI connector, then you would need it. But many of those high technological soundbars doing this top sound performance have more than one HDMI connector. Then again, you would not need that audio return channel. 8K is far off. We know that a high frame rate 4K. Some of the broadcasters are doing experiments with that, but I think that's also not for the very near future. So the most critical one or reason to have HDMI 2.1 would be the dynamic metadata HDR feature, which I think makes sense.
I guess you might not be able to give us a full answer for this question as well, but where next for OLED? What is the next big improvement, do you think, for OLED technology?
I think the first thing that OLED manufacturer is looking at is getting the OLED cheaper, meaning getting its yield still up. That's a focal point for the manufacturer, which you could say maybe not so relevant for consumer, but it is, because then OLED will become more affordable, deeper down the range, so OLED range will become wider and more choice. Besides that, the guys are also still looking at improvements on burn-in solutions to prevent burn-in. Bigger screen sizes are explored. 8K, of course, resolution in OLED, and they're also now looking at rollable OLED, so to make new use cases. These are the type of stuff that is happening there on the OLED field.
For a lot of OLED users, or potential OLED users, the issue they have is that the entry-level screen size is 55 inches and is perhaps too big for their living rooms. So is there any scope that we will see OLED in smaller screen sizes?
Yes. This is happening. 49-inch is one of the potential screen sizes.
I know there's going to be a lot of people very happy to hear that one. So again, looking at the future, where does your P5 processor go from here then in terms of picture processing? Is it doing everything you want it to do, or is there still more to glean from it?
Although we're using many times there the word perfect in our P5 engine, nothing is perfect, of course, until the next step. So yes, of course, we're looking to keep on perfecting the 5Ps, so in source, perfection, sharpness, color, contrast, and motion. So and that for full HD sources, because that's still the majority where people are watching at in their home, in their households. But of course, when you want to do everything as good as on a 4K source, you need more processing power and more intelligent algorithms. So also we're looking at there. And of course, the next step, preparing for the future, going to 8K, we can use, or we have to improve our engine on upscaling technologies to upscale or Full HD or 4K up to 8K. So that kind of picture processing, new sources mean that you never stop on your engine. You have to keep on improving on your engine in horsepower and intelligence, and that is what people can expect from us. Next steps on the 5Ps for the next coming sources.
Back to forum members' question, and we're moving away from OLED TVs just for a little while. So you also produce LED LCD TVs in your lineup, and recently Main UK, a forum user, has noticed that you've moved from Quantum Dot last year to NanoCell this year. Significant decrease in the headline HDR figures. Now, was this a choice made purely for panel availability, or do you see a performance advantage by using the LG panel?
The main reason why we moved from Quantum Dot to the NanoCell to the LG panel was because of viewing angle, like the reader is mentioning. This is the main benefit or the main difference, because the other things that NanoCell can do as good as Quantum Dot, the color saturation that NanoCell is making is comparable to Quantum Dot. In the light output, I think that's what you mean with the decrease in headline HDR figures. Light output is simply a choice of what we are installing in the backlight together with the NanoCell. And some Quantum Dot products had probably a little bit more light output than the NanoCell, simply because then they were also positioned in a higher segment of our range, more in the segment that is now taken over by OLED. So why did we do it? For a good reason, for a well-thought reason, because we were not happy with the viewing angle performance of Quantum Dot, and NanoCell was a real answer on that one, without any side effects on other stuff, because the other thing, like light output coming from that product, also was a deliberate choice to keep it at an affordable level for that part of the range.
And the same member, Main UK, also asks a question about Hue. So he's saying that the newer Hue API being so functional, can we expect any enhancements and additional options for Ambilight plus Hue?
I'm happy that the member recognizes our innovation in Ambilight. And again, sorry, I have to say the same thing. Announcements on next steps Ambilight we will do in the beginning of next year.
And of course, that is third week of January, so people listening to this interview, you will get the information first. We will be at the Philips event in January, and we'll be bringing you another interview with Danny, and obviously a video of those events. So if you're feeling a little bit down at the minute because you're not getting the answers at the minute, you will get them third week in January. So yeah. So just to wrap up then, Danny, on our little chat this morning, you can't give us any clues on your 29 TVs, can you? Or will we see 8K from Philips?
Sorry. No, I cannot comment on that one. Also, again, I will come back with more information about that in January.
Okay. Well, Danny, thank you very much for your time. Thanks for joining us on the podcast. We had a fun evening with those TVs at the shootout recently, and we hope to see you again in January. So have a great festive period, have a great New Year, and we'll see you in January.
Same to you, Phil, and to all your readers. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Maybe a bit early, but we see each other in January.
Okay, so thanks to Danny for the interview there, and some interesting things. We're going to have to wait till January for the rest. Like Danny said, there are a lot of things that he can't mention at the moment, but that is the third week in January. AVForums will be at their launch event, so you will get a full video, another interview, and you'll find out exactly what is being launched by Philips for 2019. Right, moving on. Steve, you've been looking at an AV processor.
I have the Marantz AV8805, which is a 13-channel processor that supports Dolby Atmos, DTS:X, and Auro 3D, if you've got any Auro 3D discs. So it makes it the only, as far as I'm aware, the only processor at anything approaching a sensible price that does that many channels and supports all three of the immersive audio formats. I mean, otherwise you're looking at things like the Trinov, which is 13 grand. So,
Steve, further to our conversation about what we find a sensible price, what is the price of the 8805?
It's 3.5 grand. So 3.5 grand actually is compared to the alternative.
Yes,
that's not too bad. And it's a really good processor. I mean, it looks exactly like their receivers, and in fact weighs 13.5 kilograms, which is surprisingly heavy considering it hasn't got any amps.
It's got no amps in it.
Yeah. It's beautifully made. It looks great. I mean, I've always quite liked their design. I think it's a bit different, and that little circular window makes it look different from the usual AVRs and amplifiers and processors. So I think it's an attractive looking processor and beautifully made, and it has at the back. It processes up to 13 channels, but it has 15 balanced XLR and also RCA outputs at the back, so you could actually run different speaker configurations from the same processor, basically, although it is limited. I say limited, I mean 13 channels is probably enough for most people, but what that basically means is if you've got any Atmos discs and you've got the room to do this, and I suspect it's more aimed at dedicated home cinemas than someone's front room, but you can run either 9.1.4 or you can run 7.1.6. So that's either 9 ear level channels and 4 overheads, or 7 ear level channels and 6 overheads. Plus you can also run 2 subs from the processor as well. Although the processing is obviously is 9.1.4 or 7.1.6. That's with Dolby Atmos. With Auro, you can run the full Auro setup, which basically means you have 7 ear level channels, you have 5 height channels, and also a Voice of God channel directly above you, plus 2 subs. So you can do that. And then currently DTS:X is actually limited to 11 channels, so you'd be able to run 7.1.4. But that's basically the same kind of processing that's in Denon's X8500 AV amplifier. And obviously the two share a lot of stuff because they're both owned by the same companies now. And it's a really good processor. It sounds fantastic. My one complaint, I suppose this is less of a complaint and more of an observation, because I've spent a lot of time recently with like RCam and NAD using Dirac Live, which I love, and this uses Odyssey, and the Odyssey's starting to look very, very outdated compared to Dirac in particular. There's none of the graphical interface. There's none of the sort of custom. You can customize Odyssey to a degree using the remote app, but compared to Dirac, it's just not in the same class. So I'd like to see Denon and Marantz perhaps moving away from Odyssey, or either see Odyssey up their game or see them move across to Dirac, because I think the results I get with Dirac are vastly superior. But obviously, if you take the time to set up correctly and you can do it manually as well, then you can still get great results out of it. It would be nice to see a more effective room EQ system. But having said that, Odyssey does do a pretty good job with the bass in my room, not as good as Dirac. But yeah, as a processor, it's fantastic. The processing on immersive audio in particular, but I mean, it's, as with a lot of Marantz kit, I think it's quite musical in its performance, more so than most AV receivers, amplifiers, or processors, which is great because it means you can use it for both purposes. But it also sounds great with multi-channel and immersive audio in particular, where it's steering effects around the room, and particularly when you've got those either extra side. I mean, I tend to find a pair of extra width speakers can be quite handy, particularly filling that gap between the front and the rear of the soundstage, and that's where obviously something like having 9.1.4 would come in handy. So yeah, like I say, it is aimed more, I think, at the custom install. I don't think it's the kind of thing you would buy for your average living room. But at $3,500, it's not cheap, granted, but you combine that with some really good amplification, like the IOTA, for example. Which in fact I did use it with, and the results can be really impressive. And it's got all the, in terms of features, it's got everything you could possibly think of in there. Not just the immersive audio. It's got IMAX Enhanced. It's been updated for that. It's got EARC. It's got Apple AirPlay 2. It's got Amazon and Google Assistant voice control. It's got absolutely every feature any modern AV processor could have. Plus, it's beautifully made, attractively to look at, great performer, and very flexible in terms of setup as well. And I do like Denon and Marantz's menu system. It's intuitive, easy to use. It takes you through the whole process setting it up. So even though it's quite a complicated processor in some respects, it's actually relatively easy to install. And as I say, my only real complaint would be I personally feel that Odyssey maybe is long overdue for an update in terms of its capabilities. But otherwise, the processor itself is fantastic.
And what was the price on this one, Steve?
$3,500.
Okay.
So let me just double check that because that's off the top of my head.
Yeah, we know you're having problems with the top of your head at the minute.
It made a massive difference. I'm sleeping like a baby now, which is kind of ironic.
Yeah.
Just Ross, if any of our listeners can either knit or knows someone in their immediate circle that can knit Steve a bed bobble hat, you will have my undying gratitude, especially if it's in a fetching sort of baby pink or blue or something similar. And I'm sure that we could probably put a photo of it somewhere. And thank you for your hard work. But this is just too much of an opportunity to miss to just make him, look more adorable. So if anyone's out there that can fulfil this peculiar brief, I'm sure that we can probably rustle up the measurements of Steve's head as well, which is very large. Yeah.
I'll be honest. I agree with you, Steve. I've lived in a very cold house before, and wearing a hat to bed, it's a game changer.
You see, I disagree entirely with this. One, obviously, as
you got hair.
Yes, I know, but I have to say one of my happiest states is the rest of me being warm under the covers and a cold head. I'm very, very happy.
I have to say, Ed, I'm very much like you. Especially if I'm staying at my parents, where it's almost like an oven in there at this time of the year. I really like a cold pillow to put my head onto. Yeah.
No. I think what you're talking about is cool. It's nice to have cool air. If you've ever lived in a house where you end up with ice on the inside of the windows or something.
Yeah, hang on. I live up north. I think I know what cold is.
Yeah, to be fair, I mean,
ice on the inside of the windows.
Yes,
absolutely, yes.
My current place is like that, and as I say, in the mornings, I don't want to leave the bed because it's bastard cold. But the cold on my head is not a problem. I quite like that. So I think it's the richness of human variety right here, isn't it?
Yeah. So
Steve, if you're looking for something a bit like Scrooge, try a Christmas hat. Genuinely, there was a period in my life where I went to bed wearing a Christmas hat for about 6 months. And, happiest I've ever been.
Well, there's your strap line.
In answer to your question from about 10 minutes ago, Phil, it's currently available for £3,599, but obviously I'd expect to, you might get some deals going into the new year.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Steve. Thanks for your review. Right, so it is the end of the month, so we're going to do our best ofs, which means that Ed's going to do his album, vinyl release and playlist of the month. So on you go, Ed.
Right, okay, album and vinyl release are one and the same this month, and there's a very, very good reason for that. The band in question is Dead Can Dance. Now, if you plough through my reviews on a regular basis, you'll know that I make frequent use of the catalogue of material from Dead Can Dance. It's two people, a chap called Brendan Parry and a a lady, I believe, Lisa Gerrard, and they've been around for donkey's years, best part of 30 years now, although they did have a couple of years off. It's somewhere between goth world something else music, which sounds perfectly alarming, but trust me, it's not. And they don't release a lot of material. And they, after a hiatus, they did an album a couple of years ago, sort of 2012, 2013 time, called Anastas. Now, I will be honest with you, it's not bad, but it wasn't really a stonking. It wasn't Dead Can Dance that we you know, that they had been in their previous iteration. However, earlier this month they released another album. It's called Dionysus, and it is absolutely everything that Dead Can Dance should be. Now, it's both my album and my vinyl release for one very, very important reason. It is just 2 tracks, both of which are between, I think, 15 and 18 minutes long. So the vinyl release is absolutely perfect because one track is one side. It is, there's no point skipping it. So it is, and also there's no such thing as bad Dead Can Dance vinyl. Everything they've ever done in analog is simply astonishing. Their live album, Towards the Within, which again I make frequent reference to, is indisputably the best pressing I have, and it is generally regarded as one of the best pressings that there's ever been. So I haven't actually got the vinyl yet because my brother is buying it for my birthday present. But I have on good people whose opinions I don't discard out of hand have said that don't worry, it's a cracker. And you can, if the whole idea of listening to it on a record player is just pointless to you, it's available on all the streaming services. I believe it is available as a it's certainly available in high res on Qobuz if you are a subscriber to that. And I'm just going to check Tidal for you now. I think it's a Tidal Master as well, and even if you don't have access to that, it is an absolutely stunning piece of recording. It's one of those things where you think, oh, that's not too bad, and then you realise actually there's a bit where you thought there was no compression, there is, because when you listen to this, and it's just a massive thing. I was going back to my quick liaison with a £240,000 hi-fi system yesterday. I played this on it and I was a very, very happy camper. So if the whole idea of world music and other things leaves you a bit alarmed, just give it a go, see what you think. Because it's bloody marvellous, and the cover is also the cover is the sort of thing you want in vinyl size as well. Just throwing it out there. Playlist. It's not been a great month for playlists, but buried in the recesses of Tidal is something called Crossed Wires. Now, further to the article I wrote a little bit back about electronic music, Crossed Wires is an example of what I have been talking about. This is not music to stand in a warehouse chewing your face off to. It's a journey through lots of alternative presentations, sounds, times, and you won't like everything on there. I certainly don't, but there's enough stuff which is interesting, which is just diverting and grabs your attention to make it a very, very worthwhile listen. So those would be my hot tips. And then because I've saved time by having one and the same album and vinyl release, an interesting thing has cropped up on the streaming services. Junkie XL, which I think is a stupid name, but he has a proper name as well, which escapes me at the moment. As well as some dance music, he's moved into film scores. He was the man who did the Fury Road score, which, as far as I'm concerned, is one of the best of the last couple of years. It's really, a real eye, an ear for working with the bonkers visuals. But he's been commissioned by the Red Bull Formula One team to knock out an album of music to accompany Formula One, and I'm just going to bring it up.
So it's boring and repetitive and just goes round and round and round.
Well, I'm pleased to say it's a better business than actually watching a Formula One race these days. It's called The Racing Collection, and again, not everything on there is perfect, but I've made these bold statements in the past. There's a track called Sparks on that, and it's absolutely brilliant, and I have every suspicion that it will crop up on telly lots to do, because it's just one of those things that will work in a huge number of contexts, both motoring shows but other things as well. If it's something that's licensable, it's going to get used to death.
Okay, so
there you have it.
There you have it. Ed's wrap up of the month. So yes, we're moving into December. It's a shorter month because of obvious things like CES. I'm not going to mention Christmas. I'm going on my own this year. I've just realised I'm going on my own this year, and it's going to be strange going into restaurants and sit at a table for one, please.
Oh, well, look, as I said to you at the time, I simply didn't know enough about what I'd be doing for it to be a sensible. But also, it does mean that you have full control over your dietary intake. So if you repeatedly go to Five Guys, you have no one to blame but yourself.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. That's definitely not going to happen.
It's coming from somebody who went to Five Guys twice in one day.
No, that was in the Five Guys. It was. Oh
no, you In-N-Out Burger twice.
In-N-Out. That's one.
Oh, yeah. To be honest, I could probably justify that. But yeah, are you going to upgrade your supermarket? I mean, if it's just you could go Whole Foods.
Yeah, well, actually, the place that I'm staying in, it's more or less a bed sit, and what I don't want to be doing is cooking and sleeping in the same room, if you know what I mean. So I'm probably not going to. Probably going to do very little cooking while I'm there. But then there is only me, so it shouldn't be an issue. But yeah, it's one of these. It's almost like a bed sit. The place I'm staying in, because obviously I'm there on my own. But it's in the normal place that we normally are. It's just a little place. But yeah, I don't fancy cooking and sleeping in the same place. But anyway, what was I going to say? We're getting into December, so like I said, Editor's Choice Awards coming up. We'll be talking about them next week and for the following weeks up till we finish on the podcast. The last podcast of the year is the 17th of December, and then we're back again the Monday after CES week, myself and Steve, to discuss everything as it is fresh in the mind and as it has happened. So yeah, that's the plans for the podcast. So like I say, we've got the Editor's Choice stuff coming up. We've still got some really big TVs to review as well. So I'm expecting the Q900R to turn up today from Samsung. It's on a very quick turnaround, this one. They haven't sent these TVs out for review to everybody. They had a central location, didn't they, Steve, where a lot of reviewers went down and reviewed was it the 85 inch? Because obviously it wasn't
85 initially was what I did. I think they also did a separate second event with the 75.
Right, and obviously they don't want to be sending around the 85s and so on. So we've got the 65 inch coming. Hopefully today.
Almost a portable.
Almost, but it's going back again on Thursday, so it's going to be a quick turnaround for that one as well. But I'm looking forward to that. It's 8K. There's no material to watch on it, but it should be interesting to see how it performs with what is available now, because obviously the TV is available now. You can buy it in the stores, and is it worth buying an 8K TV? Well, we'll tell you in a couple of weeks' time. So yeah, we've got lots of things on. So stay tuned to the podcast. We've got lots to cover before we finish for the year, and then we're straight back with CES. But that's hardware news for this week, and we'll be back in a sec with movie news. Right, so movie news, and like I said, it's the end of the month, so Steve hasn't been to the cinema. I certainly haven't been to the cinema, just do not have time to go at the moment. So films of the month is going to be kind of difficult, because I don't think I went in November, did I?
I went twice.
What did you see?
I saw Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald, and I saw Overlord. So by process of elimination, my film of the month is Overlord, because I actually quite enjoyed it.
Was Bohemian Rhapsody in November?
No, that was at the end of October.
Was it? All right, because that was the last time I've been to the cinema, was Bohemian Rhapsody. Okay,
so the Coen Brothers one on Netflix.
I enjoyed that. Yeah, I thought it was good. Did you watch it?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, The Ballad of Buster Scruggs is worth checking out if you're a Coen Brothers fan.
Okay,
it's the first two stories in particular are very funny.
Right. So anyway, that is films of the month. Nice and easy there. Films opening this week if we are going to go to the cinema, Steve.
Yeah, if you're going to go to the cinema this week, you can go and see Sorry to Bother You, which is a sort of a fable really about a black guy who's working in a call centre and realises if he puts on a white guy's voice, he gets more business. So basically, it's the black guy's using David Cross's voice when he's on the phone, and it's kind of obviously it's a parable about race relations in America, but apparently it's very clever and very funny and worth checking out. Also, Tulip Fever, which stars Alicia Vikander, and I'll be honest here, I really have no idea what Tulip Fever is about. I assume it's about tulips, but I could be wrong. Anyone know anything about Tulip Fever?
Okay, so Tulip Fever is actually a 2017 film, and it's just been released in December 2018 in the UK, and it's an artist falls for a young married woman while he's commissioned to paint her portrait during the tulip mania of the 17th century Amsterdam.
There you go.
So there you go, that's what it's about.
So I won't be going to see that.
Oh,
okay.
Whereas I do fancy seeing Sorry to Bother You. The other film coming out is The Old Man and the Gun, which actually again looks quite interesting. This is apparently going to be Rob Redford's last film. He's retiring from acting. He's getting on a bit, I suppose, fair enough. But he plays an old bank robber, basically, who robs banks without ever actually having a gun, I believe. I've seen the trailer, and but just by being really charming and nice. And he's being hunted by an FBI agent. But that actually looks like it might be quite a nice film.
Yeah, it's 82.
It's a true story.
Is it based on true story? Is it, Mark? Did you say?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. I think there was.
Well, it looks like a nice swan song for Rob Redford, who I think is a class act personally. So.
Yeah, he's 82. So I mean, I think it's a good time to say.
Yeah, fair enough.
Maybe.
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay, so that's kind of this week at the cinema. Discs.
It's a quiet week, basically.
Yeah, I kind of gathered that one. Yeah,
there's some big releases next week, but it's a quiet week this week.
Yeah. Okay, so what have you been buying this month on disc, and what's been your favourite?
Right. Well, disc-wise, I think for me, certainly, in this month, it's been a couple of catalogue titles that have really caught my attention. The 2001 release is absolutely fantastic in every respect. And also Escape from New York, fantastic as well. Both of them are I mean, well, 2001 for the picture in particular is just an amazing release. And Escape from New York, because it's such a comprehensive set of extras on it. It includes the soundtrack, and also the film, obviously in 4K from a new restoration, and a whole bunch of extras. So both of those are really great releases that I'd recommend. I mean, for me, that's the big. I don't think there's been any sort of new titles, new films that have been released this month that have really been big for me. Although coming out on Monday, we'll talk about in a second, is one that I would definitely be looking forward to. But for me, it's been catalogue releases in 2001 and Escape from New York are my favourites.
Okay, good stuff. Right, so let's move on to Blu-ray releases and 4K UHD releases all together, because I think most of them are coming out together.
Most of them are the same, yeah. So we've got on both Blu-ray and 4K, we have Ant-Man and the Wasp, which I've already got because I bought it in the States. It came out about a month ago. I really enjoyed the film, thought it was good fun. It's a great disc, looks and sounds fantastic, so worth picking up if you're a Marvel fan. Also, Mission Impossible Fallout, which my copy arrives next week, when it comes out. One of my favourite films of the year. I thought it was brilliant, and I'm really looking forward to getting this on disc. I'm going to do a Mission Impossible, all 6 films, I think, try and do them in one day, just for a laugh.
Right.
That's out on Blu-ray and on 4K disc. I believe in Mission Impossible, it opens out in a couple of sequences where it was shot on IMAX cameras. The helicopter sequence and the Halo jump sequence.
Can you mask it? If you're using it, obviously you use a 235 screen like I do, so can you mask the IMAX screens, or have they been used in such a way that if you do that you miss information?
Well, see, my view is always I would mask it, because they can only I suppose if it's an entire sequence, then they may have framed it for the IMAX 1.9:1 ratio. But my assumption with things like the Nolan stuff, where it goes between aspect ratios in the same scene, he can only be composing for one aspect ratio. And my assumption is
which he does. Yeah. So Nolan definitely does 240:1 or 239:1.
Yeah.
He films at that and then just opens it up for the IMAX. But yeah, I have
if
heard
the entire sequence takes place in an IMAX sequence, then it might be that they would presumably have composed it for that aspect ratio. But they also, presumably, they also have to think about the fact most people are going to see it.
Well, you see, I saw it normal cinema in 240:1, and it looks fine. Yeah.
So I would definitely watch it masked anyway, for the obvious reason, as you would. That otherwise, you got to, you lose the whole widescreen effect. Anyway, that's out. Also, Hotel Transylvania 3 is out on both Blu-ray and 4K disc. We have Westworld Season 2, and that's out on Blu-ray and 4K disc. Out on Blu-ray only is Fear the Walking Dead Season 4, and out on 4K disc only is The Big Lebowski and The Lion King.
I'm going to buy The Lion King, definitely, because I didn't get the...
I was thinking about that. Do you think what are you going to get out of it, though? Because, I mean, it's still animation, so...
But you see, I didn't buy the Blu-ray.
Oh, right.
So for me, it makes sense to pick this one up on 4K. But like you say, I mean, cell animation, so on. It'll be nice and sharp. There's no doubt about that. What it really interested me, I don't know if you saw the trailer for the new live action Lion King.
Yeah, I did.
And somebody very cleverly did a shot by shot, side by side, and it's really quite funny because in the live action, the new live action, it's almost a shot for shot copy, but everything's back to front. So if in the original a hand moves left to right, in the new one it's right to left. It's really quite interesting how it mirrors itself like that. But yeah, it looks quite impressive actually. This new live action thing.
Well, Jon Favreau did an amazing job with the Jungle Book, so I'd be curious to see what he. When we say live action, presumably it's mostly CG, unless they talk lions to talk. Yeah, it looked interesting, and I did enjoy the Jungle Book. So as long as I don't know if I want to see. Hopefully, it won't be a complete shot-for-shot remake because that would be a bit boring.
I don't think it will. I think what I'm taking from this as well is that they've learned a lot from the stage presentation. And I think you're going to find elements of that making its way into it as well. So it could be quite an interesting release. I just hope they're not going to now go through the whole back catalogue of animation and make them all live action. That would be a bit much. But yeah, it's it was the first Dolby AC3 Laserdisc I bought was Lion King. The first DTS one was Jurassic Park, and the first AC3 was a Lion King. And actually, I had a demonstration of the Lion King on the setup that I ended up purchasing at Bill Hutchison's Hi-Fi in Manchester, which no longer exists. And it was one of those moments where my jaw was on the floor, and I thought, I have to have this.
So you played Circle of Life sequence at the beginning.
Oh yeah, on repeat sometimes. It was it was something else, that just to hear that in your own home with discrete surrounds. I mean, we all take it for granted now with it, Atmos and all the rest of it. But back then, that would have been 95.
95.
Yeah, it was astonishing. And I ended
my first AC3 was a Clear and Present Danger.
Right. Yeah. But yeah. So I know that film so well because it was one of those that I just watched over. Because again, Laserdiscs were so expensive that you ended up watching films over and over again.
£100 box set.
Yeah, absolutely. So.
Yeah, at least it was no contact though, so technically they didn't wear out. I mean, obviously the players.
Yeah, some of them have ended up with laser rot though. If they were made.
Well, that's more of a bonding issue on the thing.
If your discs were produced at certain plants, namely Mexico, then they did end up with rot on them. But there you go. Right, so that's the discs covered. So let's move on to TV shows of the month. I think standing ovation once again for BBC Natural History. They have produced an absolutely outstanding series with their dynasties. I've been blown away by it. I've only seen one episode in HLG. That was because the Sony, which we've discovered, the Sony ZF9 wasn't showing it, as it only showed me the chimpanzee episode, and then all the other episodes were not shown as UHD, and I assumed that they were only showing them on the day of that they came to air. So I didn't question it until you mentioned it this morning, Steve, that it was on the B7 but not on C7.
And it was on both TVs available as UHD, but when I actually streamed it on the B7, it streamed in HLG, but on the C8 it wasn't, and I have no idea why. I think maybe there's a few teething problems still going on.
Right. Is that a review sample you got in?
What of? No, I bought one.
Oh, you bought one?
Yeah.
All right. So you've now got a B7 and a C8?
Yeah, got a B7 in the bedroom and a C8 in the lounge.
Oh, for God's sake. Just so sat there in your little hat watching a 55-inch 4K OLED.
Yeah, he kept that one quiet. No, I've just checked on the
C8. I've been referencing the C8 in my reviews for months, have you not noticed?
Well,
I just assumed it was on the 65 that you'd reviewed earlier.
No.
So you're buying an OLED a year? Presumably.
Well, no, I think hopefully that's it now for a bit.
Do they give you a hat?
Yeah. It's okay. Was it a 55 or a 65 that you've purchased, Steve?
65, because I realised as soon as I bought 55 last year that it was too small.
Right, so you've gone for a 65 then, have you?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I'm glad I didn't do that.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
I'd be up a gum tree.
Yeah, no, I'm just checking on the C8 that it is in HDR, Steve. So it is in HLG.
It is.
Yeah, it's gone straight into Technicolor, HDR picture mode Technicolor. Yep, so it is showing. So you might need to have a look into that one. Although I did see that there was a firmware update that appeared, so I'm going to check the TV before I update it, because you know what LG are like with firmware updates. They usually end up breaking something. But anyway, yeah. Dynasties, I am assuming that everybody else has seen this, and I've got to say, some of the cinematography, especially on the Lions episode, with some of the shots of the planes with thunderstorms and sunsets and that kind of thing, it looked amazing.
Yeah, and apparently it's been traumatizing the children of the United Kingdom for the last 3 weeks. Between dying penguin chicks and dying poisoned lions and monkeys rip each other to pieces, and the chimpanzees rather in the first episode. Yeah, children are basically across the land have been traumatized.
Yeah, well, little snowflakes, they'll have to learn to grow up. And life's tough, people. Eddie, seen it?
No, but you know that my finger is never anywhere near the pulse of modern culture, so I don't watch a huge amount of telly. Sorry. You know, this gigantic 55-inch 4K white elephant at the end of my room. You know,
well, at least you didn't splash out on a 65. So,
oh God, I would have been in serious trouble trying to get that into my current digs.
Be looking at whether you could kind of lower the floorboards or something.
I would probably have had to. I would have had to have sold it. I could make an amusing comment, but no, it would have had to have been sold. Otherwise, it simply wouldn't have fitted. But otherwise, I have been watching. This is my question about what I've been doing. I have been obviously religiously watching MasterChef: The Professionals, because I say it every year. It is one of my television highlights of the year, and I don't care if you think that makes me a sad bastard, but it does. I absolutely love it. My only complaint is that they're getting too good. Normally, one of the delights of the start of the series, of each series, is that a couple of people turn up who are just hilariously delusional. You know, they claim to be head chefs, but they're broadly speaking home cooks with delusions of grandeur. This year, almost every single person that's put themselves forward is actually a pretty good cook a pretty good chef, rather, not cook, in their own right, but it's still beautifully shot, and I just find it really compelling television.
The best episode by miles though was when Marcus Waring got them to make him a sandwich.
Yeah,
that was bordering on your egg test, because they all made the crap. I mean, honestly, I could have made better sandwiches than they turned up.
They were so thrown.
Yeah, they were totally like, you want a sandwich? And they just made the most unimaginative sandwich ever, and you could just see the disappointment on his face, couldn't you?
Yeah.
If you're making a sandwich for Marcus Waring, it better be bloody good.
It's one that like the skills test it remains just phenomenal television to watch. Just the capturing of facial expressions and the like. Yeah. I mean, the fact
Greg Wallace gurning in the background.
The fact that they jump cut it, I can't help but think that sometimes the facial expressions are done after the event. But nonetheless, it's really, really good. And I couldn't tell you who's going to win it this year. There's at least 5 or 6 of them are, it would appear, genuinely shit hot. I mean, hopefully I've always tried to work out if Knockout Week is seeded, and I think it is, because there's a couple of people when they showed at the end of last night's program, when they showed that it's Knockout Week, and there were a couple of people I remembered from the earlier weeks. I'm thinking, actually, you're not that good. So hopefully they'll be paired up against the people who are, and they'll be sent on their way rejoicing. And fine. I mean, that slightly scary plastic looking one, this 23-year-old head chef,
the one who's really good.
Yeah, he looks really, really impressive. And that guy from the first week who works at the restaurant near my parents, I think he could be one to watch as well. So yeah, I'm well ensconced in that. Otherwise, I have been enjoying Police Interceptors on Channel 5, because I absolutely love watching the police just clobber.
Is it still my old stomping ground, is it?
They've moved down to Yorkshire now.
All right, okay.
But I mean, in related to you, has anyone seen on the internet on Twitter and the like, that announcement from the Met Police that they're now...
I back them 110% on that one. Absolutely.
But that video of them...
What is... Sorry, for those of us who don't know...
If you use a moped to commit crime, they will use their vehicle to knock you off the moped.
And then attach a hilarious video of scroats being run over by police cars.
I would knock them off a moped and then reverse back over them, personally.
okay, Judge Dredd.
Yeah,
Well, you can apply and see what they say. But nonetheless, that made for compelling.
The thing is, if you're going out to commit crime like that and you're robbing people and seriously, pulling knives on people and all the rest of it and taking their mobile phones and stuff and using a moped to do it, don't complain when the police come along and knock you off the moped. Yeah.
But just to play devil's advocate here, at what point is it disproportionate as an amount of force?
When you reverse back over them.
Yeah.
I know, but when you say using your moped to commit crime, yeah, fine, you've mentioned kind of knife crime and that kind of thing, but what about like intellectual property theft or something like that? You're on your moped and a copper just knocks you flying.
Yeah, you deserve it. Absolutely. If you're driving a moped, you deserve it.
You sung happy birthday in that restaurant.
What was it? There was a tweet from yesterday from the Camden branch of the Met. In October 2017, we had 742 moped-enabled theft snatches in Camden alone. Since then, largely due to officers pursuing and knocking these offenders off their stolen mopeds, we had 72 offences in October 2018. So, in other words, it reduces the chance of injury because people aren't. It's a preemptive thing. People are less likely to try it because they know there is a very good chance that a jam sandwich is going to knock them off their moped.
Perhaps, or maybe they're still on crutches.
Either way, they
they're
aren't
off the street
stuff.
Yeah.
We have had 250 now wheelchair theft.
Yeah. What have you been watching on the TV, Mark?
As I mentioned earlier, Haunting of Hill House. But very different to what I expected. I was expecting a kind of straightforward horror. It's obviously making a kind of horror over 10 hours gives them a lot more room to explore things, and so therefore you can't just have the standard pacing of a film where you know exactly where you'll get a jump scare or exactly you kind of know the general pace of how a horror film is going to be these days. But this was a lot more psychological. As I say, it put me very much in mind of Don't Look Now.
Have you finished it yet?
Yes.
Isn't there an episode that's a single take?
Oh, I don't know.
I heard one of the episodes, episode 5 or something like that. It's all done in one take.
You know what?
Quite cool.
Yeah, there were lots of moments where they were spinning the camera around. Maybe that is it. Yeah. But yeah, it's one of those where it's also nice. They've kind of stuck in a few like little kind of hidden ghosts and things.
Yeah, apparently there's things always in the background. You can keep your eyes open for stuff.
Yeah, and I really like that aspect of it because it's very well shot, and you always get the sense, a little bit like when you're watching The Shining, you're always looking to see what's at the edge of a frame because you think, well, this is framed very, very deliberately, and it's more of like a kind of psychological family drama. It's dealing with like the fallout of the childhood trauma and post-traumatic stress and that kind of thing, as opposed to just being kind of momentary jump scares. Yeah, but I very much enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'll watch it. I'm going to finish Daredevil and then I'm going to watch that.
Yeah, and I've also been watching Dark. Has anyone seen that one?
No.
It's a kind of like a German Stranger Things, but very much in the style of the atmosphere of like your kind of Scandinavian noirs and that kind of thing, about child abduction and time travel, and it builds really nicely, very atmospheric. Highly recommend that one as well. If people can stand subtitles, then it's very, very good.
Steve, what have you been watching?
I've been watching and enjoying The Little Drummer Girl on Sunday nights. It's been a slow burner, but it's built over time, and I'm really into it now. And I thought that was a really good series. And unusual, it's just based on a John le Carré novel, but it's about the Palestinian-Israeli conflict and of terrorists in the early 70s. So it's a very different kind of take from what he normally does. It's not really Cold War thriller, but I've really a great cast, headed up by Florence Pugh, who's really good in it. And I've really enjoyed it, and directed by Korean of all people. You'd have thought that strange choice, but it's really, really good.
See, I've got to say I prefer le Carré in kind of Cold War mode.
That's why this is interesting, because it's a very different take on le Carré, isn't it? Whereas normally,
I don't know. A lot of his modern books
Berlin.
are, he does kind of explore all these different kind of conflicts, and I just find some of his kind of modern stuff, particularly when he touches upon like Palestine and that kind of thing, quite depressing, really. It's very stark. I found there was a coziness to the Cold War.
You do get nostalgic for you knew where you stood in the Cold War.
Bring back the good old days.
My dad continuously says that. Yeah, sure, there was, the imminent danger of nuclear Armageddon, but you knew where you stood. It's like, oh, well, fine, good for that. So, yes, weird form of nostalgia. Especially for a man who was part of the armed forces, your life expectancy would have been measured in minutes once,
along with the rest of us,
shock army hoved into view. But that's hindsight and nostalgia are powerful things.
Okay, so on that literal bombshell, that is it for this week. My thanks to Steve Withers.
Let's go bowling.
Ed Selley.
Don't be fatuous, Jeffrey.
And Mark Botwright.
A world of pain.
Don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook, bookmark AVForums.com for latest reviews, news and video, and why not leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes, but only if you enjoyed the show. I'm Phil Hinton, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you again next week.